As often as you drink this cup.
Good deal. Let's do it. Okay, what's going on, guys? We are here with this week's podcast, and we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to talk about discipleship and some other things. But on our journey there, we are going to make a pour over. And the reason, that's right. So whether you like coffee or not, I used to hate coffee, and a lot of that was because I never understood it in its most, I don't know, just perfect state, the correct way of tasting a cup of coffee. I thought that it was all about, people woke up with their nasty Folgers, smelled horribly, they just needed it for caffeine to wake up, or needed extra caffeine kick throughout the day. 5 years ago, I actually found out the date because of my friend. It was December 24th.
Have you written it in your Bible?
2015. And that was the day. It was a brunch, and it changed my life. And here's why: because coffee in and of itself is actually really, really beautiful. I'm gonna do my best to brew this coffee, not be long-winded, but try to give you as much detail. And hopefully this can speak some volumes to you. It looks like one big chemistry experiment, because it is. There's a lot of different factors and ratios and measurements and things that have to work all at the same time. So we're gonna break down each one of them individually. Then I'm gonna brew the cup so that I'm undistracted, and then we'll make it happen. Cool. So what we first have to start out with is a beautiful bag of coffee. This is Messenger. They're across the street. Shout out to Messenger Coffee.
Oh, yeah.
We love them. That's right.
Come on, Messenger.
Your coffee bean is important. It comes from, this is from Ethiopia. Ethiopia has a light, fruity, and this one I believe is a natural. Let me see. So, yes, natural. This is a natural. Yep. So, natural means that the bean, basically the cherry, was left to ferment, and then so all of that juice and everything else kind of ferments into the bean. Then washed is they put it through a machine that kind of not grinds it, but kind of strips it of it. So you still get flavor, but you don't get the same amount, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So I was a tea drinker, which is why I love light and fruity coffees. It makes zero sense why you look at a big brown cup of coffee and you smell blueberry. It makes zero sense, okay? That's what we've got today. This is wild.
Delicious.
With coffee, you don't want to pre-ground it. Why? Because literally within minutes, if you pre-grind your coffee and then let it sit there, you lose the potential of that flavor, which is why no matter where you go oftentimes, right, the coffee sometimes all tastes the same, even if it's like, oh, this is Guatemalan, this is Ethiopian, this is whatever. It's because they've already ground it and it sat there for a long time. You get about 2 weeks, or you get about a month, but people really say 2 weeks of like right when you roast, you want to check your roast date on the back, okay? You got 2 weeks, just go by that rule. Okay.
Coffee legalist.
Right. So next is you have to grind it. You want to grind it with a burr grinder, which is basically like a pressing method versus a blade method, okay? And it's all about the size. For a Chemex, okay, which is just the name of this brewing system, you want to go for a little bit more of a grinder setting. And that's so that because of the amount of coffee that's ground up into it, you want to actually be able to see the flow rate, which is basically just from when you put the water on top of it, how long it takes to extract. Gotcha. Okay? If it takes too long, you get over-extracted coffee. Tastes bitter. If it goes through too fast, okay?
This is amazing.
If it goes through...
I have never got here in my mind.
Right.
If it goes... About me a lot of times, just over-extracted. Just too much.
If it goes through too fast, then it's under-extracted and it becomes sour. So what does that mean, guys? That means it's got to be perfect. It's got to be just right, okay?
Can't be bitter, can't be sour.
Right. So that means that your grind size is everything with a brew method like this that just is a cone shape and has a hole. And so then the next thing we want to look at is water temp. We've got a temp gauge kettle you can't see, but it's perfectly at 205 degrees. And purified water to the best of your ability, because that makes a big difference. Then a scale, okay?
This is amazing.
What we're going to do is we've ground up our coffee already just because it would have taken a long time. Now, what people do is we typically do like a 1-to-15 or 1-to-16 ratio, which basically is, for every 1 gram of coffee, you're going to get 15 grams of water. And so that's what we've done here. So we're going to pour that in there. I can just smell it already.
Wow.
It should make you so excited. Okay, this is crazy. I'm not exaggerating. This is the Bombay, and it is the bomb. Okay.
Do you smell Marcotte's cooking?
Right.
That's
and here we go.
About.
So we're going to tear this scale, which basically means we're going to set it back to 0 now that we've confirmed that we've got 50 grams of coffee. I know you can literally smell it. Okay, now here's the important part. Now this takes a lot of practice, but the way you find out these things, especially with your grind setting, is the time it takes to do this. So Chemex has been my newest brewing method. It's been something that makes a bigger cup of coffee. So we're dealing with a higher ratio here, or bigger, more grams of coffee being extracted here. But you can tell by how long it takes, and basically how long it takes from the moment you start to reach your gram or your maximum whatever, and then how long it takes to yield the whole pot of coffee. And so anyways, without further ado, let's get into this, because you don't want it to sit too long. We've already sat a little longer than what I like. So today we're going to yield about 750 grams of coffee, which should evenly disperse into these cups here, enough coffee to sip on this afternoon. So that's the process. That's a lot all in one, but that's what it takes to be able to yield a beautiful, luscious cup of coffee. Troy, if you will.
Oh, I've been waiting for this moment.
Right, if you will.
It's 2:05 coming at you.
2:05.
2:05.
Okay.
Don't spill it.
So here's what we're going to do.
Mess it all up.
Right. We're going to start with a bloom process. What is a bloom? I'm glad you asked. Now, Troy, if you could do me a favor, hold down on that button right there.
This
and
one?
let me know when you give me the 3, 2, 1 countdown.
This middle button?
Nope, on the side there.
Right here?
Yes.
Okay.
Hold it down.
3, 2, 1.
Boom.
Boom.
Okay.
Wow.
Now I let go.
Yep. So
Okay.
what we're going to do is we're going to do a bloom. What is a bloom? I'm glad you asked. We're going to put about double the amount of grams as we did to coffee, which is going to be about 100. And we're going to let that sit.
Okay.
What that's doing is that's gassing out the coffee. And that's how you know your coffee is super fresh. Like when we made a cup this morning, it was going nuts. And what that does is that just helps eliminate resistance from allowing the water to fully interact with the coffee.
Wow.
So we let that sit there for, what are we on over there?
We're at 39, 40 seconds.
Perfect.
Counting.
Okay, 39, 40 seconds. Good. We're normally wait about around that time. So then what we're going to do to yield is we're going to just do counterclockwise circles. We're going to start in the middle and go nice and slow. And we're going to bring it around and around and around. And you can start to watch the flow rate. So you want to pay attention to the flow rate.
Here it comes.
Okay.
Okay, and we're just going to bring it in and out. And we're going to try to keep it as even as possible. You don't want to dump the water. You'll see people do this with not a gooseneck kettle, and they will just dump the water all up in there. It agitates the coffee. Coffee's like, yo, dog, I don't like that. I'm trying to make you a good cup, but you're not helping me.
Didn't realize coffee was so
says that.
sensitive.
Coffee says that. It is sensitive. It is sensitive.
This is an honest question. So is there a reason? Is counterclockwise important?
I wondered
or is it
that.
just one? Just do
question.
one direction, either clockwise or counterclockwise.
Counterclockwise is the way it's supposed to be done. Because. No, to answer your question, Jeff, I honestly have no idea. It's because if you're right-handed, it's a way that gives you a little bit more of an accurate pour. As you can see here, I'm using my left hand.
Now,
So Troy would use his other hand, and he would go clockwise because he's left-handed.
Okay, that's good to know.
And so would Jacob.
Now,
That's
I don't
good.
want to distract you from what you're doing.
Go ahead.
But how is it you know all this? How are you?
When I tasted that cup of coffee,
Okay.
I'm really not exaggerating to you. I promise you. I was just with my friend the other day that did this. He was in his kitchen doing this for brunch. And I'm like, bro, what are you doing? He's like, I'm making coffee. I'm like, it doesn't look like you're making coffee. He's like, that's because you've never seen anyone make coffee. I was like, okay, good point. I tasted it. It was an Ethiopia just like this. I lost my mind. I said, Josh, is this what
Wow.
that's supposed to taste like? So to answer your question, Brother Don, it was because of that experience that made me go and search it out for myself.
Wow.
So what I did before I learned was I wanted to develop my palate.
Okay.
So I said, if this is what coffee is supposed to taste like, I need to go several different places to actually find out what's good. And so I did that, and I started just like chasing it down everywhere I went. Every state I went to, every city I went to, I tried to find third wave shop. I'll explain that later if you don't know what that means.
Okay.
And looking for people that can make me a pour over, because I wanted coffee in its purest form. Thankfully, Kansas City is a hub of so much good quality coffee.
Wow.
Okay, so then after that, I was like, okay, this is a very expensive hobby. And so I was like, I'd be better off if I just buy all this stuff myself. But I was grateful for the investment. You know, I was single at the time. I was able to just kind of dive in and just drink coffee and enjoy it. And so from there, that was it. That was a wrap for me. I bought all the stuff that I needed and slowly just started doing different, methods. And I mean, if we really wanted to go crazy with this, we could, bring in an AeroPress, bring in a V60, bring in a Kalita, bring in a B House, we got the Chemex, I mean, I could.
You're just name dropping now.
Yeah, French press, like we could, and that's the thing too. What's cool is that there's a good cup of coffee and a good coffee for any person, regardless of what you like. If you want it to be earthier, if you want it to be nuttier, if you want it to be chocolate and caramelly, if you want it to be blueberry and just gushing with apple and Sprite, there's a coffee for you.
Wow.
But you got to go find out what it is. Not everyone wants a blueberry cup of coffee. And I kid you not, some people have been so accustomed to the nasty, burnt cafe, Starbucks coffee.
Ooh, he went there.
That like they don't even know how to, they want what they want. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see, you just want what you want. But I'm telling you right now, if you want coffee and you want to actually not just, like I drink coffee literally for the taste of it. And I know that sounds funny too, because like I've never been a big caffeine guy. I've never been like, let me drink sodas and I'm addicted to caffeine. It really was like, I would be buzzing all over the place, but it was the aftermath of just like being so stoked on the flavor profile of something that came from Ethiopia and was meant to be.
Wow.
It was meant to be like tasted like this. This is how it was meant to be experienced.
So it was meant to be enjoyed.
Yeah, not just like, oh, I just need a cup of coffee, you know what I mean? I'm like, dude, you better get out of here. So we've yielded what we've got. Now we're gonna wait. This is the slurry. I always give it a little stir. What that hopefully does, it's a little harder with the Chemex. What that does is that flattens out the bed and hopefully ends that final pour with a good, even extraction. I feel like the flow rate is pretty good. What's our time over there?
We are at 5:38.
So we're a little longer than what I would hope at this point. But basically all that, we started a little late too, and I wasn't as focused, but we're still gonna actually have a good cup of coffee. I can smell it. But sometimes what that would mean is that, okay, the next cup, really all I would do is I would just change my grind size just a smidge. So I'd make it a little bit more coarse.
Okay.
Thankfully at home I've got a Baratza Encore, which is an electronic machine that it grinds it very perfectly.
Wow.
So it's just a matter of zzz versus hand grinding. One thing I did not think of is a little trash can. If anyone could.
I can.
Okay. Oh, Jacob's going to grab that. Thank you very much. Sorry about that.
Wow. So filter-wise, that's looks like you could wrap meat in it.
Correct.
But I'm guessing it's not. So do you have a preference on filters?
So with Chemex, they pretty much only come with one filter. Now you do have metal filters. I don't like using them. The same way that I like to experience a cup of coffee in a ceramic cup versus like a metal cup, or even holding it in any other form of decanter, is just, I like to have it in glass or ceramic. I think it all plays a role into it, especially if, even stuff like water. Oh, look at that flat bed. Oh, that makes me
The
sick.
vocabulary in this podcast is
Dude, look at
top
that.
shelf.
That's exactly what you want. That's 100% perfect.
Looks like the bottom of the Blue River.
That never happens.
See, I feel like I've gone to a ball game not understanding the game. I mean, this is fascinating.
That is
flat bed.
flat bed, literally. That is literally perfect.
Wow.
So you see how it's a little thicker there? You see how the pieces are thicker? Yeah, so there you have it. All right, let's go ahead and
That does
take this
smell
puppy out.
fantastic.
We're going in.
You need this?
Going in
Yes.
here.
So just a
Going-
quick, thank you. It's probably not aesthetically pleasing for the camera, but
all
that's
good.
About that.
all good. Okay, So now what we've got is if we were doing any kind of cupping, which is basically a bunch of coffees, ground, put into a cup filled with water, and you just kind of sit. You would take time to kind of just let the aroma hit you. And that's sometimes actually how I'll determine if it's a good cup before I even taste it.
Yeah. So you got to do all this. You got to grind it and pour it. And
Do all the
treat it
stuff.
flat bed.
But even when I'm somewhere else,
Okay.
I'll know it's a good cup of coffee just by smelling
The
it.
way it smells.
I'm all about the approach. So you want to, when it goes into your cup, you want to be able to enjoy it up to the point of it reaching your lips.
Okay.
That's how you have to learn. What do they call that when you're the wine people, that the sommelier or sommelier? Okay, like how they can taste it. They know what region, they know where it's from, they know what year,
have no
they know
wine
the
drinkers
conditions.
here.
There was nobody going after that one for you.
Right.
Jordan.
So you can kind of just get,
We were going to be
you
nothing
kind
on
of catch
that.
the fragrances
Sommelier.
where it's not sommelier, where and you don't got to get close. Just let it kind of
Let it hit
waft
you.
it a little
Let it come
bit.
to you. Let it come to you.
And what'll happen is
Okay.
it won't at first, like if you get all up into it, you'll be like, oh, okay, there's parts of it that are just like what I would know as coffee.
Okay.
But you'll start to taste these aromas or smell these aromas as if
A little bit at a
someone
time.
put something in there
Gotcha.
to flavor it. But the whole point is that the bean itself and the process that these people put so much work into over in Ethiopia, I'm being dead serious. They put all this work into crafting this bean to be so good.
Okay.
And then we ruin it by the time it gets here. We don't want to do that. We want to actually be able to enjoy it for what it's worth. That's why I like this. So it's really not being a snob, in my opinion. I think it's just enjoying it the way it's supposed to be enjoyed. Now, there's different versions of how it can be enjoyed by still getting the flavor profiles and different things like that. It's the same person that would like a Sprite over a Coke or a this or a that or what. I mean, that's a horrible example, but I'm just saying you could have an Ethiopia, you could have a Guatemalan, which is going to be a different profile, a Colombian, all of that. So the best part of waking up
Let's get to it.
is actually, hold on, let me see. How much do we have in there? It's all good. This will still taste good. All right, so there's a little bit for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me get your cup here.
Okay.
All right, so we got a little bit for you. Oh my gosh, this smells.
Do you need a cup?
I've got one.
Okay, because Jeff brought his babe cup.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll get some for Brother Jacob here.
So are you,
Okay.
after we get it, you'll tell us when we can all take a sip.
Yes. Okay, so.
Yeah, exactly. I was waiting.
So, what you'll see too is we just poured, but after a second, you'll see the bubbles settle. It's a great sign.
Okay.
And you won't always see that when you get, you'll see it when it first squirts, like if you get it out of a thing. But a bad cup of coffee will keep its bubble. That's another thing too, right? So you got a clean
Do you know
cup.
why it does that?
A lot of times is that a lot of that process in the beginning when we gassed it out. A lot of times you're not allowing for that process to happen, and so the coffee didn't really interact well with the water. So, anyways, I always, like I said, I like to kind of just give it a second to approach, and then I taste.
I'm nervous.
Ooh, that's a good approach right there.
That blueberry is
Yep.
undeniable and unbelievable.
Yep. Yep. So what we can taste here now.
Salute.
Cheers.
Can we say that?
Sommelier.
Now, there's probably maybe a couple things that I could potentially change with this particular.
Are you being hard on yourself?
No, I'm saying this is how you'll start to evaluate like little ways to be able to like tweak it for next time. So you're going to make another cup. I would probably go 45 grams of coffee instead of 50.
Okay.
Why? How did you get
Part
to
of
that?
it is sometimes if it takes a little bit longer, but your grind size seems right, especially for like bigger quantities, then you can that's probably what I would do. I'd probably do that. But overall, I think it's a good cup of coffee. So
How does this relate to being a Christian?
that's a great question.
Bro, you got to break in the story of our group. I mean, don't you think? Can you go there with that?
Yeah, I think we should. So the reason why
'Cause I want to testify at some point about that because I'm a convert.
Right. So, we were on our men's group retreat. We were doing a 24-hour session going to St. Louis.
Okay.
And I knew about St. Louis. Had been a long time since I've been there, but for me, I'm like, dude, we've got to check out both these coffee shops. One, Sump Coffee. The other one was Blueprint. What was really awesome was a lot of the crew loved coffee. I've been giving Troy a hard time for a very long time about coffee. I even bought him this mug because he had a Starbucks mug, and I was like,
somebody gave it to me.
I was like, please don't. And he's very faithful.
We used to have group
this.
at my house, and I made coffee for everybody.
Right.
And he would
Right.
never drink my coffee.
Right.
He'd go get his own and come over, and I was like, "Are you serious?"
Because mind you,
why is that a big deal?
Right. So we're there, and it was really awesome because we go to Blueprint. About 4 or 5 of us order different pour overs, so we're able to kind of have our own cupping again, which is just several coffees, taste it, learn to develop your palate, all that stuff. Okay. So it was cool because I was kind of explaining some of this process there, not as extensive, but was explaining it and being really passionate just about there's a reason why certain things should be enjoyed the way that they are, and that you just got to be able to taste it for what it actually is, because a lot of people don't get to taste it for what the real thing is. I did a devotional for New Life some months back kind of explaining that very thing, and it was so awesome because everyone's starting to kind of be like, oh my gosh, I can taste it. But Troy kind of has this moment, he can share it, but he has this moment where it's just like I get it, And I don't know if you've ever walked with someone with, discipling them and trying to introduce them to Jesus, walking them through the Word, and it's just like a slam door, you know what I mean, for so long, and you're just like, okay, Holy Ghost, at this point we just need you to intervene, because you know what I mean.
I'm just trying for me with coffee.
Right. So it's like, and again, people are so if they've tasted something in one way for so long, it takes them a second to really be able to get it. Okay. But when you actually explain the process, when you explain the value, when you actually allow people to remove themselves from why they normally drink coffee and drink it for a different reason, I think that it can really help change. And I felt like that day, that's one of the things that helped aid Troy was we weren't just coming into work and just grabbing a cup of coffee because I need my morning coffee. Sure. It was we're all together and we're actually coming around coffee. And we're talking about Jesus, we're talking about discipleship, but and then we start realizing how this could maybe play a role into discipleship. And I'll let you tee up kind of where we went from finishing at Blueprint and then heading to some.
And to your point, I had watched Jordan be like an aggressive coffee drinker for a long time, and it baffled me. Why would you get up earlier to go get coffee before you go to a 7 a.m. Bible study? Just drink the coffee. It's not that big of a deal. But I respected him as a person. I'm like, he's not crazy. He's a good guy. But it was like, and so after a while, I started asking more questions, why is coffee so important? Yeah. And those were the questions. And then we're at Blueprint for 2 hours, and we're doing the sipping and hanging out. Yeah. And he's explaining a lot of the same stuff that he explained to us today, just kind of walking through the process and smelling it. And it was like, oh, wow, this is an amazing cup of coffee. Yeah. I experienced it.
Right.
When I experienced it, then it made me appreciate it more and want to learn more about how to do it myself, to go on my own coffee journey. I'm not quite as far down the road as he is right now. I'm more of a baby coffee drinker still, but I value it. Yeah. So for us, that was an amazing moment, and we sat there and we're like, this is discipleship. I mean, this is what discipleship is. Yep. Somebody observes somebody following Christ from a distance. It's like, man, they're making some massive changes. Why are they doing that? Why do they live that way? Why do they go to church every Sunday, raise their hands and pray? And it's like, but they're good people. Yep. And I'm watching them kind of live it out.
And they're consistent.
It is attractive. And then I start asking questions. And I'm like, oh, well, why do you do this? And it begins to make sense. And I follow this journey till, boom, I experience it. Right. And then I just want to grow as a Christian more in my faith. I want to be around it. I mean, if you're like, hey, there's a cup of coffee in the afternoon, every one of you can testify, I'm in. I want to be around it. I love it. I love to have an extra cup of coffee. I like it in the morning. I like it in the afternoon. Right. So it's like, you don't have to talk me into it. I mean, I've talked you into it. So it's like.
This is like a song.
Man.
In the morning, I love it in the evening. I love it in.
all day long.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's our faith, and so anyway, a really quick story, and I want you guys to chime in and ask questions and do all that of him, not of me. He's the leader in this. Okay. But we had this moment, and we were like ready to go to the zoo. It's like, we'll just go walk around the zoo and hang out. And it was like God was like leading us to go 20 minutes out of our way, the opposite direction, to another coffee shop.
Yeah, did we come all the way to St. Louis just to drink coffee?
Yeah.
Which is pretty much what happened.
Yes. But we left where we were, went 20 minutes the opposite way from home, sat down, we went to this coffee shop. We all start getting our stuff. They have these like community tables. It's a busy place. Yeah. We end up next to 6 of us guys next to a dude and his like 2 or 3 year old or 4 year old daughter sitting at a table in the corner. Okay. We all get around there, and that's the only place to sit. And we are like, he's like, hey, what are you guys doing here? We're like, well, we're a discipleship group. We're from Kansas City. We're just, getting away to study the scriptures and, hang out and drink good coffee. What are you doing here? He's like, oh, we moved here. I'm burnt out. Really kind of left my faith. Was a church planter. Walked away from it.
Yep. Wow.
And we were like, ooh, this is a moment. Wow. Because it was like God led us there to have that conversation.
Right.
It was amazing, and we all we had a great conversation. We left on good terms. It was just, and everybody shared a little bit about their story, and he shared his story with openness, and maybe that's what he needed at that time in his journey.
Yep.
So.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was awesome. I mean, it was just it felt like real, confirmation for us, just because of what we had just come from, in our conversation at the previous spot. But I don't know. I think it's been cool to if you go over to Messenger right now, or any other coffee shop, it's like the amount of exchanges that are taking place. I was over at Key Coffee down in the River Market this morning, and it's funny when you just see all these individual people come in and they just showcase so much of themselves by what they order.
It reminds me of a story. My wife was raised on a farm in South Central Louisiana.
Microphone.
My wife was raised on a farm in South Central Louisiana. Dad was a rice farmer and carpenter, but coffee is part of the culture down there. He would get up extra early every morning, take care of the livestock while the rest of the family's in bed, and he would come back and prepare coffee and some kind of bread for everybody in the family each morning. And he would take it to them, warm bread and hot coffee. And she grew up like that, drinking it from a child on up. So when I met her, we married, she asked if I would drink coffee with her. And I explained to her I don't drink coffee. I drink tea. I drink hot water, honey, and lemon as a beverage also. Sure, I'll sit down and drink a hot beverage with you. She says, no, I want you to drink coffee. I said, I don't drink coffee. And this went on, 10 years, 20 years. I estimate around 30 plus years. Wow. When we started having kids, she would try to get the kids to start drinking coffee with her at a young age, which I'm not necessarily in favor of young kids drinking coffee, caffeine.
Stunts their growth.
Yeah, that's what I've been told. It's like smoking cigarettes and drinking hard liquor or whatever. Bootleg. But the kids didn't want to drink coffee with her, and she literally is asking people in the family on an ongoing basis, would you drink coffee with me? And everybody would say, no. I'll drink hot water, honey, and lemon. I'll drink a hot beverage with you. It just won't be coffee. I don't drink coffee. Over 30 years of marriage, I began to think about something, and it dawned on me. Maybe coffee is a relational beverage to her, and it puts her in touch with the feelings she had as a little girl in bed when her dad would give it to her and her siblings each morning. Maybe it put her in touch with that warm bread or what have you. And so because of that, I just started drinking coffee. I didn't enjoy it initially, and I developed a taste for it. I had to develop a taste for it. It did enhance our marriage. I'm not joking. It enhanced our marriage positively.
Wow. Just
me drinking coffee with her either in the morning or in the evenings. And now I make it for her all the time, and I drink with her. And I'm a better man for it, better husband for it.
Amen.
Yeah. But it was intriguing to me. It wasn't just the fact she needed somebody to drink with her. She didn't need a drinking buddy. She needed someone who would drink coffee with her.
Drinking buddy.
Another
That's
Cheers,
an
we all
awesome
need
story,
those,
Don. I mean, it really is. And man, I think you're right about that. Coffee is it's a relational beverage.
It is a relational
is.
beverage.
Yeah, I mean,
Interesting.
who else would? Jeff, I got to hear your story, but I mean, I'm really liking that coffee mug. It fits.
So my wife doesn't drink coffee, but she appreciates that I like coffee, and so I can't tell if she got me this because I remind her of Babe the Pig, or that's really her name for me. So
That's quite a
So I
movie, by the way.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Babe, that's quite a movie.
That color brings out your eyes, though, when you bring it up.
Why,
I
thank
think
you.
that's what it is.
I don't know if you this is such a random movie to bring up, but I don't know if you've ever seen Waterboy. But
What?
Adam Sandler. No, listen, because if you've ever seen it out there, it's how I feel when I watch people drink the water that was being served. And he goes, don't drink that. High quality H2O. And I'm over here like. Even with Troy, like this is my pastor, man.
Yeah.
Like if he's gonna put horrible coffee, at least put it in a recognizable mug that represents something good.
Yeah.
Because it was more degrading him putting, I don't know actually if I feel this way, but him
At least
putting messenger.
cleanse the outside of
Yeah,
it.
100%. I'm like, at least if somebody walks in, they know he's at least attempting to drink some good coffee. So that's how I feel. I mean, I feel like
Testimony.
I would. Like if it could do like what it did for me for somebody, if I could just make them a decent cup of coffee and give them an experience, then I want them to have that. You know what I mean? So
you're saying that he's Henry Winkler, basically?
So I have no idea who that is.
Gosh, it's a Waterboy reference. Okay.
Is it really?
Henry Winkler's the coach.
Oh, well, you gotta say the coach.
Okay. So
There's a word, epiphany. To
Watch
have
your
an
language.
epiphany, you have an enlightenment.
Yes.
Yeah.
You see the light.
Yeah.
But that's what happened to you at your buddy's house.
Right.
You saw the light. You have an
Right.
epiphany.
Right.
Yeah.
So hopefully along the way we're able.
No,
I mean,
this
you're
is
able to
good.
pick up what we're putting down when it comes to discipleship and.
Yeah.
I do
How this
a
ties
couple of serious things that I love about this. So a couple of things I heard you explaining well. Process. It's a process, and I love how even the guy that you guys met in the coffee shop, and he's in a process with God.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys maybe have been praying for somebody for a long time. You're in process
Right.
of what God's doing in their life, as well as discipleship. We don't just Jesus certainly transforms us immediately, but then we change. He continues to transform, and we're in process. And I love that about it. The other thing I heard is the enjoyment. Jesus and John Piper says it so well about enjoying who God is.
Yeah.
And I struggle with it at times. Just going through you show up on Sundays, you go to the service, you do what you're supposed to do. You throw a batch of coffee in the instant coffee maker and shove it in and get your warm stuff that's supposed to come out. But are you enjoying it? I mean, Jesus wants us to enjoy Him. That's why He did what He did,
Right.
and lived and died and rose again.
Yep.
And then,
That's
then
very
it,
insightful.
and then it reminds me of Ephesians 3. Paul's prayer for the Ephesians is that they would grow in the multi-dimensional aspect of the love of Jesus, the height, the breadth, the width, and the depth of the love of Christ. And as we grow as disciples, we can also grow as coffee lovers as we see the different facets of the grinds and the temperatures and the climates that they come from. And so I love your illustration.
I think it speaks volumes also to like not even just the discipleship process, but like how to sustain. Which I've never thought about it like this until you started talking about what you were talking about. But it's like I think it is the difference between like a fix and actually enjoying what it is that you're drinking. Because like when I think about all the components that go into making an enjoyable cup of coffee, you know what I mean? Imagine this, like as dorky as it sounds, like community, praying, Bible, all of these things that sustain a walk with God and an enjoyable walk, nonetheless. Like you actually do have to go above and beyond to seeing all these things be consistent. and then that's what makes that consistent cup of coffee. Do you see what I'm saying? The temperature has to be right in the water, and the water's got to be right. The coffee's got to be right. All of it's got to be right. Versus, let me just get my fix with something quick because I know, you know what I'm saying? And what do you want from it? I think all that stuff really, I think it could speak deeper volumes. I think it's pretty interesting.
There's a culture of the ancients that we've lost. You referenced, instant coffee or just preparing coffee instantly. The ancients would not sit down and have a meal just with anyone. There was a transference of salt in their food, which spoke of covenant. You might remember, I think it was Anwar Sadat that gave Menachem Begin salt at one point in time when he was meeting with him and working towards a treaty between Egypt and Israel. The term salt was very important in terms of covenant. The ancients understood something about eating with a person that we do not, and drinking with a person. And things were not instantly made. You think about the time when the three individuals showed up at Abraham's camp, and Abraham had to have an animal slaughtered and have his wife prepare that animal. You're talking hours of preparation and bleeding and what have you, and they would eventually sit down and eat a meal. Well, this is what that reminds me of, just this preparing of coffee, just what you went through, the grinding even before the cameras began to roll, and then the process of pouring it through the filtering system. It took time. And I'm thinking about my wife's insistence that I drink with her, which reminded her of her childhood and just the time it took just to enjoy a warm bed, her dad preparing this for her and the siblings and some bread, and they would eat before getting out of bed. The ancients understood that. We don't. It was in their culture. You didn't just rush in, gulp down a cup of coffee, and rush out. No, you took time with each other. You conversed with one another. You got to know who you were drinking with.
That's good.
Well, this is what that does for me. This has been good.
Yeah.
Very good.
I know we got to wrap this up. The challenge, and even as I've seen you do all this, Jordan, and some other folks that really love coffee, is to me it's incredibly, as Don alluded to, it takes a lot of preparation and it's inconvenient. And yet, because of the inconvenience and the time spent, it's sweeter and more enjoyable, and it tastes better. And again, my walk with Jesus, there's some things that are super inconvenient, and until I do those, kind of like you said earlier, until I take the effort, they don't get as sweet or as rich without that. And so I love that about this illustration. So thanks for doing this today.
Yeah.
Now, this will not be a weekly thing.
I like it.
Which I know that they want it to be.
Oh, yeah. You can always make coffee before we talk.
You're right. Hey, you bring the bag. I'm with it.
Okay.
Honestly.
Okay. I think we can make a deal.
Very meaningful.
We can make a deal.
Yeah.
I like it, man.
Thank you, man.
guys. This is good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. I think that's it.
Okay.
Till the next cup.
Amen.
Next cup, hey. All right.
Next cup.